Howdy folks, welcome to Module 8, the last module of the Microsoft MD-102 course. This last module, as you can see, is called Deploy using cloud-based tools, basically the exact opposite compared to the previous module. If you've watched the other 7 modules of the course, well done, it is a lot to take in folks. If you, however, have not watched the previous 7 modules of the course yet, I recommend you go and watch those first before watching this one. Unless, of course, well, you're looking for something specific, a specific topic that is. On that note, in the video description, like usual, folks, you'll find useful timestamps to the main topics in this video, should you need them, of course. Now, folks, this last module consists of 5 main sections, a bit more than most of the other modules, I would say. That's Microsoft for you. The first section we'll be covering is deploy devices using AutoPilot. The second is implement dynamic deployment methods. The third is plan a transition to modern endpoint management. The fourth is manage Windows 365. And then the last section is manage Azure Virtual Desktop. Well, there you have it, folks. The 5 sections we'll be covering in this last module of the course. Now, like usual, before we jump into that first section, do your bro a solid and hit that like button so we can get this course to more people out there that actually needs it. You'll also be doing the channel a favor in general, so that it can grow and all that. Also, if you'd like to know when videos for other new courses come out, maybe also consider bumping the subscribe button. I don't know, just saying. Alrighty, now that I've got all of that out of the way, let's jump straight to that first section we listed earlier, deploy devices using Windows AutoPilot. In this first section, folks, the first topic we have is AutoPilot for modern deployment. Now, when it comes to AutoPilot, if you don't know what that is, I've seen a lot of companies don't actually use it. Just because companies don't use a specific tool does not necessarily mean it's a bad tool. It just simply means they don't need that tool. Although in some cases I've seen they just don't know about the tool's existence to begin with. Now, AutoPilot, guys, does not need any images. No images, no drivers or infrastructure. Now, doesn't that sound like something new? So AutoPilot, if you're not familiar with it, is for people that have never come into the office yet, or for people that bought themselves or obtained themselves a brand spanking new device, and this device has not been provisioned yet by the IT team such as yourself. I think COVID-19 will probably be a very good example of that, the pandemic. A lot of folks in most countries were not allowed to go into the office, and should they go and obtain themselves a brand spanking new device, like a new laptop, for example, in the old days, people would normally bring this device to the office at least once. And that's so that you or the IT team can go and provision this machine of what it needs. Maybe a different operating system, a better addition of Windows perhaps, drivers, maybe updates, any programs or configurations this user may or may not need. Now, if people are unable to come into the office, kind of like COVID-19, how the cheese do we give these people what they need? That, guys, is where AutoPilot comes into play. It's basically a cool tool that allows you to go and give these people what they need. This is something we would have covered earlier in this course, not in this module, but in one of the previous modules, where I would have mentioned to you guys what AutoPilot actually is. So if you use AutoPilot, no need for images, no need for drivers, no need for infrastructure. You do need to unfortunately go and configure a couple of things like DNS and all that to actually point people's devices in the right direction. So as soon as they start that laptop up for the first time, assuming it's a laptop, it's not limited to laptops, and they type in their company, email address and all that, it's going to see, okay, you are from this company, company X. Therefore, you need the following. And it's going to start provisioning that machine of what the user may or may not need. A drawback about this, which Microsoft will probably never tell you about, is the fact that it uses an insane amount of data. So if that user's on a limited data plan, yeah, they might not like the results so much. So AutoPilot for modern deployment allows you to customize the out-of-the-box experience. So normally if you start any device for the first time, you'll see it's going to ask you what language do you want it in, what country are you in, what time zone, what time do you want, that kinds of stuff. And with this autopilot, you can actually go and customize the out-of-the-box experience for that user. At the end of the day, you are provisioning that machine, shouldn't you say? New devices typically have Windows 11 installed these days. It's no longer Windows 10, and maybe going forward, maybe in 3 years or 5 years from now, it'll probably be something else. Maybe Windows 12 or whatever Microsoft decides to call the new operating systems. I've actually heard rumors that Windows 12 is also in the making and in the works, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be a Windows 12. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. So these new devices typically come with Windows 11 installed. Autopilot can reconfigure devices, so re-imaging of OEM configuration should not be necessary, guys. Device refresh is something you can go and do. So Autopilot can in fact be used to reset devices instead of using traditional methods. So in the previous module, being module 7, you would have heard I was talking about deploying, using on-premises based tools. That would basically be considered traditional methods. And now these days, everything is becoming virtual and everything's moving into the cloud and that kinds of stuff. So when we say not using traditional methods, we basically mean the exact opposite of your on-premises tools, should I say. Now, guys, here I've got a little bit of a graph for you guys to basically compare Autopilot with your traditional methods. Keep in mind, when I say traditional, I'm for the most part referring to your on-premises tools. So that would be the orange block that I've got here. So if you look there in the middle, that little column, that traditional deployment, that's on-premises tools for the most part. And the column there on the right that says modern deployment in purple, that would be your newer tools, the ones in the cloud, which is what most companies are looking for these days and are using. Now, I'm not saying all companies are using these modern deployment tools. I mean, there's quite a lot of companies and clients out there that are still using traditional deployment methods. Some of them are using a combination of traditional and modern deployment. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all going to depend on your unique requirements of your company or your client's company, of course. So if you look at deploying Windows 11 images, traditional deployments, yes, they can go and do that. Modern deployment, not so much if you go look at something like Autopilot. So when we say modern deployment, it's not limited to Autopilot, but in this instance, we're referring only to Autopilot, which is why it says no. If you look at some of the other things in that toolbox of modern deployment tools, yes, some of them can in fact deploy the Windows 11 images. But specifically referring to Windows Autopilot compared to the whole package of traditional deployments, Windows Autopilot, no, cannot deploy Windows 11 images. You can basically just go and alter said images. Comparing Autopilot further, so if you go and look at can it be used with any pre-installed operating system, traditional deployment tools, yes. Autopilot specifically in the modern deployment package, no. Once again, going down the list further, requires a previous version of Windows 11 to be installed. Now, traditional tools, they don't require that. Unfortunately, Autopilot does require that because it's going to go and take that existing version of Windows 11 that's now installed, or 10 for that matter. This could also be Windows 10. The course is based on Windows 11, but it can actually work on Windows 10 as well. So it does require an existing operating system to be pre-installed, and it's going to go and alter said existing operating system. Uses an on-premises infrastructure. So yeah, traditional deployments, I mean, that is on-premises for the most part. So yes, it is going to use on-premise infrastructure. Where modern deployment, pretty much everything in that package, including this Autopilot we're talking about, well, it's all in the cloud, guys. So it doesn't use or make use of anything on premises. And the last category there, tools for preparing the deployment. And then I've got a list there of a couple of on-premises tools and a list of some of the cloud tools. Keep in mind, it's not limited to what I've listed there for you guys. That's simply what comes with the course. If you go check just Microsoft alone, there's a boatload more. And if you were to go and talk about third party, then this list gets really, really crazy long, guys. All right, so let's talk about the requirements for Windows Autopilot. What exactly are the requirements? First of all, devices must have Windows 10 pre-installed or 11, it doesn't really matter, but as long as there's an operating system pre-installed. So unlike the on-premises tools that we spoke of on that table I just showed you guys, where they can actually get a job done even though there might be no operating system installed, if you go look at Autopilot specifically in the modern management package, it does unfortunately need an operating system of some kind to be pre-installed. At the very least, this is probably going to be the one that you get from the store. So this could be Windows Pro, Enterprise, or Education preferably. Devices must have internet connectivity. Well, if you think about it, that kind of makes sense because AutoPilot is a modern management tool, which means it's a cloud tool, folks. So how do you expect an internet tool slash cloud tool to work if you or the user does not have internet connectivity? So how do you think it's going to provision that machine? It needs an internet connection, and over the internet, it's going to download slash stream everything that it needs. So Windows Autopilot is a cloud service, folks. Intune or other mobile device management service. So that's something you're going to need as well. I would say that's optional, but it is going to make your life a heck of a lot easier. The main one here, of course, being Intune. It's not limited to Microsoft Intune, but that's the one that we would normally go and use. That's the main one that most companies go and use. It's probably the most common one, and it's also the main one that most companies go and use. So once this device is now been provisioned, then obviously you can go and use the MDM, being Intune, to go and manage that device. So this is for managing deployed Windows 10 or for managing deployed Windows 11. Devices must be registered to the organization. So device-specific information uploaded to the cloud. So that's going to allow you to see what the cheese is going on in your environment. If they're not registered, then you're not really going to know what's going on. You're going to be blind for the most part. So get these devices registered, guys. Organization must be using Azure Active Directory. You'll find that nowadays, I think they call it something else. I think it's called Entra ID. So if you go into the Azure portal very recently, instead of it being called Azure Active Directory, it's now called Entra ID. Yep, I kid you not. So Microsoft can't seem to make up their mind as to what they call this. One day it's called Azure Active Directory, the next day it's called Entra ID. So your organization must be using that. It must also use Microsoft Store for Business or Intune. Now Intune I mentioned earlier here because of the MDM. The Microsoft Store for Business, do not confuse that as the normal store. In the previous modules we mentioned there's a difference between the Microsoft Store and the Microsoft Store for Business. So the Microsoft Store for Business is a great platform for you to go and use to get these users what they need, like applications, of course. And then lastly, guys, these users and their devices need access to specific required URLs. So you need to make sure that certain URLs like go.microsoft.com and login.microsoftonline.com are allowed in the firewall. It's obviously not limited to those two URLs, but those are the two main ones that needs to be allowed in the firewall. Make sure the proxy is not blocking them or anything else that you have in your environment that may or may not be blocking these. All right, moving on to device registration and out-of-the-box customization. So device registration is something we mentioned earlier. So with regards to these two things I've just mentioned, there's two steps that's going to be taking place here, guys. Step one, create a Windows Autopilot deployment file. Yes, you're actually going to have to go and create a deployment profile. It contains certain things. For example, it contains a required profile that specifies the settings to apply to these devices. So if you're just going to go and run Autopilot and, you're going to expect things to just hocus pocus, abracadabra happen, you're in for a rude awakening. That's not what's going to happen. You need to go and apply a profile of some kind. The profile contains the settings for that specific device. How you want it configured, what you want configured in that device. Now you can go and create many profiles, but you can only apply one to a device. So if you have a company with various departments and each of these departments has different kinds of settings and requirements that's needed, you can basically go and create a profile for each of these departments. One for sales department, one for the HR, one for the IT, and so on and so forth. Now, when you need to go and deploy something, configuration for someone that's in the sales department, they might need certain settings that's only applicable to the sales department. And in that situation, you can go and apply the sales profile to them. This is just an example, guys. This is not what it's limited to, but that's a very common scenario where I've seen companies go and use these profiles. So a required profile that specifies the settings to apply to these devices. So as I've said, you can create and use multiple deployment profiles within Windows Autopilot, but can only use a single profile to deploy to each device. So you can go and create as many as you want. You can create one for every freaking department or for any other scenario, but as long as you remember, you can only apply one to a device. Now we get to step two, which is to actually go and apply a deployment profile. So those deployment profiles that you go and create, remember you can only apply one. You need to go and apply a deployment profile. So until you apply the deployment profile, The Windows Autopilot does not actually manage the out-of-the-box experience setup phase of the device. So it's just going to be the normal one. So if the user starts that machine for the first time, it's going to ask them the usual mumbo jumbo. But if you were to go and apply one of your deployment profiles, yes, then Windows Autopilot will take over the procedure and it's going to start doing what you wanted to do. Now, Windows Autopilot takes control of the out-of-the-box experience setup phase on the devices to which you apply the profile. Now, in case you're curious what the cheese this is going to look like, this brings us to this: implement device registration out-of-the-box customization. So once you've done those two steps I've just spoken about, here on the left, you can see what it would normally look like for the user. That's the default out-of-the-box experience setup phase for the average user if they start Windows 10 or 11. I think this is probably going to be Windows 10, but it's basically the same jazz if you're going to go and do this on Windows 11. And should you now go and apply a deployment profile and go and use Autopilot and it actually kicks in, then you would see what we see here on the right-hand side, or at least more or less what we see here on the right-hand side. So you can see here the out-of-the-box experience setup phase with Autopilot has been taken over. On the left, that's the default. On the right, that's what it kind of sort of would look like once this starts now with Autopilot. All right, folks, so that brings us to the end of the first main section of this module, starting with the second main section, or diving into it, which is implement dynamic deployment methods. Sorry for the small delay there, folks. Quickly had to switch mics. My other one was giving me nonsense. Anyway, first topic we're going to look at in the second section is dynamic provisioning methods. Alright folks, when you have a brand spanking new device, it typically starts with a fresh installation of Windows 10 or 11. It typically then needs the correct edition to be deployed, which would normally be something like Enterprise Edition, and this obviously comes with most of the things you would need in a company environment. The machine will most likely also need some configurations and apps on it. I mean, at the end of the day, there's always going to be some sort of need here, right? All of this takes a lot of time and effort, especially the more machines you have. To help with this, we use something called dynamic provisioning. In a nutshell, dynamic provisioning is to get what you need onto the user's machines very quickly and very easily. There are, however, various things we can use to help with the streamlining of this process. For example, you get subscription activation. Activation is necessary to comply with licensing requirements, as you can imagine. Activation links the Windows 10 product key to a particular installation of Windows on a device. It assures software integrity and provides you with access to Microsoft support and a full range of updates. You also get mobile device management. Usually we just call that MDM for short. It's not really something specific per se, since you actually get various kinds of MDMs, but the most well-known and the most commonly used one is the one we've been discussing all along in this course, which is of course Microsoft Intune. With an MDM, you can actually auto-enroll existing Windows devices to apply configuration policies and applications installed. And then, folks, you also get something called provisioning packages, something I like a lot, which are really great with getting what you need onto people's devices. A provisioning package is a method of applying configuration settings to a Windows 10 or 11 device using either removable media or download directly onto the device. These provisioning packages, folks, are really super useful, and I've used them on more than one occasion myself. Now, regarding the subscription activation I mentioned earlier, let's cover that a bit deeper. So, with the subscription activation, folks, this is required to comply with licensing requirements, like I mentioned earlier. Enterprise environments use three main types of volume activation models and a service that runs on Windows Server 2016 or later. Hopefully by now you're running something later. You can use any or all of the options that are associated with these models, depending on your organization's needs and network infrastructure, of course. The first method, or model, or whatever you want to go and call it, is Key Management Service. Everyone just normally calls this KMS for short, though. By default, volume editions of Windows 10 and 11 connect to a system that hosts the KMS service to request activation. No action is required from the users. We then also have something called MAC activation, MAK activation. It uses product keys that can activate a specific number of computers. You can use this Mac activation on any Windows 10 or Windows 11 Volume Edition. So you have to have Windows 10 or 11 Volume Edition. If you have those, this is a great way of activating a huge number of machines in your company environment. I mean, really, guys, do you want to go to each and every user's machine to go and activate their Windows? No, I don't think we want to go and do that. So what if you have a way like this Mac activation that can go and activate all of them, assuming they're running Volume Edition, of course. Lastly, we also have Active Directory based activation. This is a role service that allows you to use your ADDS, so in other words, your Active Directory domain services, to store activation objects, which can help simplify the maintenance of volume activation services for a network. When you use Active Directory based activation, you do not need a host server, as in KMS. An activation request processed during client computer startup. So all in all, subscription activation is something very useful to use and have in any company environment, folks. It's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier. Heck, with subscription activation, Windows Pro can be upgraded to Enterprise without reinstall or reboot. I mean, doesn't that sound like a pie? There is, however, some subscription activation requirements you folks need to be aware of, though. So it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. I mean, there's got to be a catch here. And one of the catches here, folks, obviously, is there's a couple of subscription requirements that has to be met. So to implement subscription activation, your organization must meet the following requirements. Windows 10 Pro, Pro Education, Enterprise, or Education Edition on a device you want to upgrade needs to be activated. So one of those that I just mentioned, so I'm going to repeat that. Windows 10 Pro, Pro Education, Enterprise, or Education Edition. So one of those has to be activated on the device you want to go and upgrade. Otherwise, it ain't going to work. You can't upgrade a device if the current edition of Windows on it isn't activated. I mean, it just makes common sense, doesn't it? You need to also have an instance of Azure Active Directory available for identity management. Lastly, folks, the devices you want to or need to upgrade need to be joined to either your Azure Active Directory or be joined to your hybrid Azure Active Directory environment. Alrighty, folks, that's enough of subscription activation, I think. Let's move on to the next topic, which is use Azure Active Directory join with automatic MDM enrollment. So that would be mobile device enrollment. So first of all, for those of you new to this is a similar concept to joining an on-premises Active Directory domain. It simplifies provisioning and support scenarios versus your old traditional on-premises methods. After you enroll a device in Intune's mobile device management, the mobile device management enforces compliance with your corporate policies. It adds and removes apps and much more. In addition to this, mobile device management can report the device's compliance to your Azure Active Directory, so that's pretty nifty, wouldn't you say? This in turn enables your Azure Active Directory to allow access to corporate resources or applications secured by your Azure Active Directory only to devices that comply with these policies. So in short, folks, if I have to summarize this, these devices are controlled by policies you or your company specify. If these devices you control aren't compliant with these policies you've specified, it all gets reported to your Azure Active Directory whether they are compliant or not, and depending on whether they are or not, they'll either be granted access or denied access to resources. Pretty nifty, wouldn't you say? It's a great way to force your users and their devices to meet certain security requirements first before they will be allowed access to certain things like your resources. Anyway, using Azure Active Directory or mobile device management, you can do some of the following. You can join devices to your Azure Active Directory automatically. I mean, as soon as we say automatically, I just start smiling because I love it when things are automatic. You can auto-enroll your users' devices into mobile device management services, like your Intune, of course. And then you can also configure the join devices by using MDM policies. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of the second main section. Can you believe it? Now moving into the third section in this module, plan a transitioning to modern endpoint management. In this section, let's start with using co-management to transition to modern management. Alright folks, so for those of you new to the term co-management, basically this means you'll be able to manage your users and their devices using more than one platform at the same time. So you can go and combine, for example, your on-premises Active Directory with your in the cloud Azure Active Directory. That will basically be an example of co-management. If you go and combine that, or if you go look at something like Microsoft Intune and you go and combine that with something like SCCM's Configuration Manager, or as they call it, Endpoint Manager, whatever you want to go and call it. So they keep changing the freaking name these days. So if you combine these platforms or tools and you manage it all from one consolidated platform, that would be an example of co-management. Now, using these co-management platforms and tools, this really makes our lives a lot easier and more convenient, these days when it comes to managing our devices. I mean, we're sitting at a point in time where every second day there's a new program or platform being released, and it's getting very hard to keep up with it all. And even if you are using just one platform or tool the whole time, these things keep updating, which makes it even harder to keep up to date with it all. Alright, so regarding co-management, it simplifies the transition to modern management because it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. Devices managed using both the on-premises Active Directory, that's the old school one, and Azure Active Directory and Intune maximizes productivity through single sign-on, SSO for short, across cloud and on-premises resources. So if you don't remember what single sign-on is, that is basically when a user goes to a platform, they sign in, and if they go to another platform which requires the same credentials, it's not going to ask them again to go and sign in, which saves you time on productivity. I mean, if your users are going to be opening a browser, signing in, every time they open a new browser tab, they have to go and re-sign in again, even though the browser session is already open. That's a huge waste of time, which could have been spent more wisely on work and productivity. So instead, when someone opens a browser, they log onto something like Azure or 365 or whatever, yes, they'll have to prove their identity. But as long as they keep that session open and they open additional tabs and stuff on Microsoft, ideally it would not ask them again to log in until they close the browser and reopen the session again. Then yes, it might have to go and re-authenticate they are who they claim to be. Intune also enables you to manage policies on internet-connected devices without using group policy, which requires on-premises domain joined devices. Now, on its own, that might not sound like a big benefit to you guys, but I can assure you it is. Remember what I said in previous modules, as well as in this module. We're setting up a situation where users are no longer just at the office. And these users are no longer using just laptops and desktops, and they're no longer using just Windows. They're using tablets and phones. These devices are possibly using Android and iOS and a whole bunch of other operating systems, which just it really adds up to our landscape. Now, group policies, if you don't know, is a Microsoft thing. It's a Windows thing. It only works on Windows devices. And if you're using or your users are using Android or iOS or something like that, they couldn't care less about Microsoft and their group policies. So how do you plan on enforcing some sort of control over your users and their devices as to whether they can access resources or not and what compliance they have to have or not? So that's not going to be group policies, guys, when your people are off premises. That's going to be things like compliance policies, which are enforced via things like Intune. So, yeah. Anyway, so I'm still on the topic of co-management. Let's talk about the prerequisites for co-management. Yes, there is prerequisites. So just like we were laughing earlier, there's bound to be a catch, and the catch here is there's prerequisites, like usual. Surprise! So to enable co-management for on-premises Active Directory devices, guys, these devices must be hybrid Azure Active Directory joined. Sounds like a big train smash, but that's actually very easy. Some of the other ones are a little bit more complex. The latest Azure Active Directory Connect must be installed and configured to sync computer accounts to Azure Active Directory. Now, if you don't know what that is, or if you don't remember what that is from my previous modules, the Azure AD Connect is the tool you install on premises on your servers to synchronize your Active Directory in the cloud with the one on premises and vice versa. So they say you have to install the latest version, which I believe is total hogwash. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've seen even if you have an old version of the setup file and you run that old version, it will automatically run the latest version. it's going to see and detect that, oh, hang on a moment, I am not the latest version. And since this whole freaking thing is a cloud tool, it'll automatically detect that it's not the latest version. It'll take 2-3 seconds longer to launch, and then you're going to see it's automatically going to run the latest version. So guys, that's total hogwash. I'm only saying it because it's part of the course and just in case it's in the exam. But in real life, I'm telling you that's nonsense. You can actually go run an old setup file and it will actually in fact automatically run the latest. Now, Intune's mobile device management must be set up and configured for automatic enrollment. Active Directory joined devices are using Windows 10 version, but this has to be the 1709 build or later. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with builds, but if you happen to be, you would know that it's a very, very old build from like 2017 somewhere. That was like in the beginning when Windows 10 just came out. So basically, guys, as long as you're running Windows 10, you should be okay. As long as it's not anything older than Windows 10. I mean, if you're talking about Windows 8.1, yeah, you're going to probably run into some issues. But for the most part, if you're running Windows 10 or later, you're probably going to be fine. So I wouldn't worry about running the correct build version because you're probably going to be running anything newer than 2017. Azure's Active Directory automatic enrollment must be enabled. Just because you have it does not necessarily mean it's enabled. And as for transitioning workloads to Microsoft Intune, there's a couple of things you need to keep in mind. That would be things like your resource access policies. Might want to have a look at that. Your Windows update policies, your endpoint protection, and then of course your device configuration. These are just things you have to keep in the back of your mind, and you or your team will most likely have to go and configure this in your environment. It's very rarely you can just leave them on the default settings. Alright, let's move on to modern management considerations. This removes the imaging process wherever possible. So if you don't remember what imaging process is, this is something we've been doing for donkey years. We've been doing it for the last couple of decades, especially in medium to large size companies, where we'll go and make an image of a machine. And if we have a new user in our environment, or someone broke their PC, or we hire a lot of new people in the department, we will just go and image their machines. And it saves us a lot of time in the sense of not having to go to each and every machine to go and install Windows and give them what they need. Instead, if you go and image these machines, they generally already have the correct version of Windows. For the most part, they have the correct configurations and settings and also the correct applications. Very rarely do you have to go and change anything after that. It transforms the existing operating system with little or no user interaction and without deploying a new image. Yeah, normally we don't have to go and deploy a new image. That's always a winner in my book. Deploys a heck of a lot faster, more efficiently, and with lower network utilization. Now, if you're going to be doing a large your network, you generally want to try and keep your network utilization as low as possible. It requires Windows 11 or later on target device. In-place upgrade, guys, is recommended for devices that are still running Windows 7 or 8.1. Now, if anyone is still running Windows 7 or 8.1, let me know in the comment section down below because I'm going to be very curious as to why you or your company are still running Windows 7 or 8.1. I'm sure it's a good reason. I mean, maybe it was not in a budget. Maybe there was nobody on the team that knew how to go and do it. Maybe time just did not allow for it. But if you or your company are still running Windows 7 or 8.1 at this point in time, please let me know in the comment section down below. And then also maybe you have a reason as to why. Just out of curiosity, I'm very curious to know why. And guys, if you're still watching the video at this point in time, very well done. Feel free to type the code word Winnie the Pooh in the comment section. That's just for fun and gags normally. So for those of you that's been following my series and my episodes for all my courses, you would know we play a lot of fun games. So if anyone is just randomly reading the comment section, they would be very confused, besides the normal comments. So people just randomly typing Winnie the Pooh, they can have no idea what the heck is going on. So that's just for fun and gags. Only people that actually watch the video up until this point would know what it's all about. So it's just for fun and gags. So if you want to play along, guys, type Winnie the Pooh in the comment section. Alternatively, just post your questions down in the comment section down below. Alright, and then with modern deployment, this can change an installed Windows 11 operating system in many ways, guys. Removing the pre-installed software is one thing it could do. Upgrading a Windows 11 edition is another. And then also joining a Windows 11 device to on-premises Active Directory domain services or your in the cloud Azure Active Directory domain. Now, still on the topic of modern management considerations, I'm just running out of room here, so let me just clear this up. Scenarios to consider when using imaging with your modern management, guys. For example, if a device experiences a blue screen of death, which is normally known as a BSOD for short, and cannot boot into Windows at all, resulting in the need for a bare metal build. So that's when you're doing it from scratch if you don't know your IT. Alternatively, what about situations like when you deliver a series of complex applications and dependencies on a device which is then co-managed? That's another scenario you might have to go and look at, which might throw a spanner in the works, as they might say. And then the third one I'm going to give you guys here is there's a hardware failure of a device that requires network connectivity to install applications or join a corporate Active Directory domain. So there's 3 good scenarios for you guys to keep in mind, and you would be wise to remember these for your exam. And in situations such as client storage drive replacements, bare metal deployments, and devices that do not support an upgrade path to the desired operating system. Also things to keep in mind. Alright guys, so that's enough about that topic. Let's move on to something slightly newer. It is, but it's not. That will be upgrades and migrations in modern transitioning. Alright folks, so under this topic, first thing I want to mention, in case you don't know or in case you forgot, upgrades is generally when someone or something stays on the same system. So if you look at like a client computer with a client operating system like Windows 10 or 11 on it, if you were to upgrade, you would usually stay on the same machine but would have a newer operating system. There's T's and C's that apply there, of course. If you were to migrate, usually this would be because you are moving from one machine or device to another machine or device. Now, if I migrate, that does not necessarily mean that I'm migrating to a newer version of the operating system. But generally speaking, you can go and check almost always would we go and migrate to a newer version of the operating system, which is probably going to be a newer version of Windows. So if I'm currently running Windows 10, my new device would most likely be running Windows 11, because if I'm going to be going through all that effort, you might as well go and upgrade the operating system, right? But it's not set in stone. Anyway, so let me give you guys a couple of scenarios. Scenarios for migrating user data and configuration. This can be because of device replacement. Maybe someone lost their data, lost their device. So now you've got to go and put their data on the new device. Could potentially be. Maybe they broke the old device. They broke the screen, or maybe the old device is just, well, old. That could be a reason for device replacement. Alternatively, this can be a device is being upgraded from an older operating system to Windows 11. So this could be something like Windows 10 to something like Windows 11. And an in-place upgrade is not possible. Now, usually if you have an old machine with an old version of Windows, your first, path would probably be to try and upgrade. But like I said in the beginning of this topic, there's T's and C's that apply. So if you would like to upgrade yourself or a user or a customer, that machine has to stay on the same architecture. So if they're running 32-bit of Windows 10, they can only upgrade to a 32-bit of Windows 11. Same with 64-bit. If they are running a certain edition of Windows 10, you generally want to try and keep that machine on the same edition as well. So if they're running Windows 10 Pro, you want to upgrade them to Windows 11 Pro. Same with Enterprise and same with all the other versions. So that's the T's and C's. As soon as you want to change architectures or editions, then you are going to have to go and completely wipe that machine. That's assuming you've backed up, of course, and then do it all completely from scratch. So if you want to go and upgrade, you have to stay in the same path architecture-wise and edition-wise. Now, another scenario could be a clean installation is needed. That could also be a scenario. And then here's 2 migration scenarios. Side by side, which is you've got a source and a destination computer, which are different. So your old computer would be on, let's say, your desk, and your new computer would be on your desk. You've got 2 different computers, an old one and a new one. You're going to move all your nonsense from the old machine to the new machine. That's a side by side. A wipe and load is normally when you stay on the same machine. There's only one machine here with a wipe and load. You have one machine. You're going to go and back all the nonsense up on it if there's anything you want to go and back up. And once you've wiped it, You're going to go and reinstall a copy of the operating system, and you're going to go and dump all your data back on that machine. That's a wipe and load. So yeah, guys, migration moves files and settings to a clean installation of Windows operating system. That's generally at least the idea, whether it's a wipe and load or whether you actually move to a different machine. The idea here is to move to a clean installation of the Windows operating system. Now, more on this topic. I don't have enough room here, so let me make this blank. Here's a bit of a table for you guys. So a couple of differences, if you will, between in-place upgrade and migration. So if you look at the left side of the table with in-place upgrade, it preserves the environment because you stay on the same machine, or at least the user stays on the same machine. So supposedly it preserves the environment, preserves the settings. That's what they mean by preserving the environment, by the way. It means you're keeping your settings and all that kinds of stuff. It's just upgrading the actual operating system itself. Now, if you look at the migration side, provides a standardized environment. So it's a whole new operating system, and you're going to have to go and copy paste all your programs and data and stuff on there, but it's not necessarily going to preserve your stuff. You're going to have to go and reload and reinstall a lot of your nonsense. Looking at the left on the second one, doesn't need to reinstall apps or transfer data, or at least so they would like you to believe. I've seen most of the time, yes, I can confirm you don't need to go and reinstall applications, but there has been a couple of cases where I actually had to go and do that, especially of things like the antivirus for some weird reason. Now, what I normally had to go and do with my clients is I had to go and uninstall the old antivirus because it just ceases to function for some weird reason. And no, I didn't have to go and download another version, anything like that, or acquire another version. Absolutely not. I could literally go and reinstall the exact same copy. You can even use the exact same setup file, for crying out loud, and suddenly, magically, it will work again. It's the weirdest and the darnest thing, but for some reason, antivirus just really doesn't like an upgrade. It's not something I see them mentioning in any courses, and it's not the only thing I've seen this happen with, but antivirus is one of the most common things that this does happen with, guys. On the migration side, you can control what migrates. So you can go and choose, do you want to migrate just your settings? Do you want to migrate your files? What exactly do you want to migrate? Keeping in mind, the more you migrate, the bigger the image will be and the longer the process will take. On the left, the third item says upgrade can be rolled back if needed. Yes, but T's and C's apply. There's a lot of things they don't tell us in these courses. You've got 50 days to do that. Watch out, guys. That's probably going to be a question in the exam. They love asking you about the default values, like how long do you have before you can go and roll back or before you can no longer roll back. Now, whether you do this via some fancy tool or whether you do this manually in person, when you upgrade a machine from one version of Windows to another version, which is usually newer, you've got 50 days to roll it back. So if you go into the control panel, or the settings app as they call it these days, you'll find there's a hidden option that appears there for only 50 days. And if you are not happy with the new operating system, maybe it's something you don't like about it, you've got 30 days to click on that button. It'll take the machine back exactly the way it was. You don't have to do anything. It does everything by itself. It's really convenient. But should you or the user take longer than 30 days, you're going to have to go and back up everything and do a wipe and load. It's going to be a heck of a lot more work. Looking at the migration side, the third item says cleans up the environment. Yeah, I suppose it depends on how you look at that. Apparently, when you go and migrate from one machine to another, it doesn't copy things like malware, but I've seen that's not true. I mean, when you go and migrate, it normally makes an image of the old machine, the data and all that stuff. And when you go and back up your data, if you've got viruses in there, guess what? It's going to back up those viruses as well in that image. And when you restore that new image on your new machine, guess what? You're going to have that virus on the new machine. So I don't fully agree with the statement of it cleaning up the environment. I've seen this firsthand. That's not true. Fourth item on the left says only certain upgrade paths are possible. Yes, we discussed that just a moment ago. You have to stay in your same architecture and edition. On the right, you must reinstall the apps. That's unfortunate, but at least we know it's going to work. On the left, you must use the default Windows image. On the right, you can use a custom Windows image if need be. Alright, moving further along in this section, migrate data when modern transitioning. So, user state migration in the replace and refresh computer scenario. So in the replace scenario, let's start off that one first. We're going to do both. So in the replace scenario, the source and destination computers are different. Remember we talked about side by side and wipe and load earlier. So in the replace scenario, these are different. So when deploying Windows on a new computer, you can capture the user state from the source computer before or after you deploy Windows on the destination computers. After Windows deploys on the destination computer, you can restore the user state on these computers, guys. So there's many ways you can go about this. One of the tools we use is something called USMT. It stands for User State Migration Tool. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm absolutely not a fan of that tool. Normally I tell you guys about how great this tool is and how great that tool is and how wonderful this is and that is. I absolutely despise that tool. It's up to you guys whether you want to go and use it. Go and test it out for yourself. Make your own opinion. Don't take my opinion for it. But my opinion is it sucks. I really don't like that tool. And there's many reasons behind that. So what's going to happen is on your old computer, the one you're no longer going to use, you're going to go and capture that as an image. On the new one, you're going to go and deploy the image. So before you deploy your image on a new one, you need to go and make sure Windows is installed on there if it hasn't been done yet. And that's pretty much it. Now in the refresh scenario, so this is when the source and destination computer are the same. In other words, a wipe and load. Like I said earlier, you're staying on the same machine. So when upgrading to Windows 10 or later operating system on computers that have existing operating systems, you can capture the user state, store it in a temporary storage, perform a clean Windows installation, and then restore the user state on the upgraded computer. Now that's one way to go about it. I've seen it sometimes does give you errors and bugs and glitches. Feel free to go and test it yourself. Once again, do not take my word for it. Rather go and do it yourself and get your own experience, your own opinion. But my opinion is it sucks. I don't like it because I've had too many occasions where that just failed on me. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'll leave it in your hands. Let it not be said I did not explain it. Alright guys, let's move on to the next main section in this module, which is Manage Windows 365. In this section, we're going to start things off with, well, you've guessed it, Windows 365. So in case you didn't know it, you do get various editions of Windows 365. For instance, you get Windows 365 Business, that's one of them. So this is normally for smaller companies of, well, up to about 300 seats who want to use ready-to-use cloud pieces of simple management options. Now, in case you haven't figured it out yet, this is all about running computers in the cloud, guys. So you would not have a physical desktop or laptop. Well, I suppose you would, but the machine you're going to be working on is not actually technically the one in front of you or the user. It's very much like a virtual machine, if you guys know what a virtual machine is. If you're watching this course or doing this course, you probably know what a virtual machine is. It's very, very freaking close to a virtual machine running in the cloud. I mean, you do get Azure, you do get virtual machines, you do get them in Azure, or you can go and upload them on Azure, or go make them on Azure, on the Azure platform. So it's very flippin' close to that, but it's not exactly the same. So these machines, instead of you creating them from scratch, they are kind of sort of, for the most part, already made. It's like a pre-made meal. I suppose it's very close to a platform as a service example. So they are somewhat already pre-provisioned for you, for your convenience, and you can just kind of swoop in at the last minute and reap the benefits. So it feels a lot like platform as a service in my opinion. So there's no licensing prerequisites needed here. I mean, how nice is that? That's going to save you a lot of time. No dependencies on Azure or Active Directory. Yeah, so you don't even need Azure for this, or, well, at least say it, so they say. Oh yeah, and then you get another addition, guys. Windows 365 Enterprise. Even better for even bigger companies. So this is obviously for larger companies who want unlimited seats for creating cloud PCs, because let's face it, today you might need 100, tomorrow you might need 500. We have no idea what tomorrow has in store for us, especially in these large companies' environments. Things change so flippin' quickly. It includes options to create custom cloud PCs based on custom device images. You're going to need that in a company environment because you never know what you're going to need tomorrow. So you're planning now for something that might not exist yet. And then it obviously gives you more management options and full integration with Microsoft Intune, which is going to allow you to manage this stuff. So even though it's in the cloud, doesn't mean you can't manage it, guys. Let's talk about configuring Windows 365. First of all, I think let's add a little picture for you guys there on the right. Sorry, I know it's a bit small, but I need some room here to, well, do my writing. Otherwise, you guys are not going to have bullet points, as they would say. Right, so with these Windows 365 machines, which we know are very similar to virtual machines in the cloud, except, well, they are for the most part pre-provisioned for you. There's even less work. I mean, as a virtual machines could be even any less work, but yes, they could actually be less work. So if these wannabe virtual machines, I think I'm gonna call them that, you can assign licenses to users. You can create Azure network connections if need be. So if you want to go and do that, or if you need to go and do that, you can. You can go and configure a custom image, so that's optional. You can create provisioning policies. You'll see there on the right hand side in my image. And you can configure and apply device and app profiles if you need to go and do that as well. That is just some of the things you guys can go and do. So, yes, you're going to have less control compared to virtual machines most likely, but it is going to make your workload a lot lighter. I've seen many environments that go and use virtual machines as well as Windows 365, as well as containers, as well as virtual machines inside virtual machines, and. It all depends on your unique needs at your company or, well, your client's company. Now, still on the topic of Windows 365, when it comes to administering Windows 365, I'm once again going to add a small little picture there on the right for you guys. It's not the best, I know it's small, but you guys will see this if you go onto these platforms. End of the day, even if I have a nice clear picture, guys, you should take it with some salt because these platforms are changing so rapidly. I can give you the latest screenshot right now as we speak, and in a month from now, it might look different. So the theory will still be the same. In 1 plus 1 will always be 2. But where you find certain buttons and certain functions and certain features, that is going to move. Microsoft is going to rename this stuff. They are going to move stuff and add stuff and remove stuff. They can't seem to make up their mind. It's exactly like my wife. She keeps moving my furniture. I don't know why. Fluff knows why she keeps moving my furniture. Today she'll move it one way. A week later, she actually moves it back the way it was. I'm like, okay, so why did you move the furniture back? And she's like, no, I liked it the way it was. I'm like, okay, but why did you move it in the first place? So I love Microsoft. I really do. But I need to stop moving stuff, just like my wife. I love her, but she needs to stop moving my furniture. So, guys, any images I have, it's just to give you a ballpark idea. It is probably going to change. So, cloud PC management is just like physical device management, in case you haven't noticed yet. Most remote actions are the same as physical devices, and very much the same as virtual machines, quite frankly. Once again, you can go and restart, sync, rename, quick scan, full scan, update Windows Defender. So maybe not all of those are the same as virtual machines. When virtual machines, you do get start and restart, or I think they sometimes call it reset and all that. So it's very, very much the flippant same as a virtual machine, but not exactly the same. With Cloud PC, unique actions would be to go and reprovision. You can do reprovisioning, resizing, and you can also go and collect diagnostics. Now, they say that's unique according to this course, but I've seen there's other unique ways you can also go and gather diagnostic data and analytics and stuff on virtual machines in the cloud, of course. All right, guys, moving on to the next section. Wow, this is taking quite some time to get through this module. This is the last module, though, guys. So, and I think this might be the last section. I can't remember. I'm striking a bit of a blank now. If memory serves, I think this will be our last section. We'll see. Manage Azure Virtual Desktop. So, yeah, Azure Virtual Desktop is cloud-based desktop and app virtualization service on Azure. I think we could have guessed that part, but the rest is stuff we might not be able to guess. You can go and connect through Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and Linux or Linux devices, however you want to go and pronounce that, with internet access using native application or the Azure Virtual Desktop. It's your choice how you want to go about it. At least they give us a choice. That's always good. Azure Virtual Desktop benefits, if you need to know what some of them are, and keep an eye on these benefits. That's the kind of stuff they like to ask in the exams. Is centralized security management for user desktops with Azure Active Directory. You have simplified management. You've got performance management. You've got multi-session Windows 10 deployment. Now that's useful. Licensing options. And of course, compute cost savings is something we've got. So those are some of the benefits that's mentioned in this course. I mean, obviously we know there's more than just those benefits, but those are the ones mentioned in the course. So those are the ones they'll most likely ask in the exam, if they are going to ask it in the exam. So it's not about, yes, there's other ones and they might ask other ones. No, they generally ask what's in the course. These are the 6 mentioned in the course, so these are the ones they'll most likely ask you about in the exam, even though we all know there are many other ones out there. So make a mental note of these ones. Watch this part again if you need to. Watch out for these. Now, carrying on with virtual desktops. So, with Azure Virtual Desktop running on Azure, you can, yep, there's going to be quite a few things I'm about to mention here for you guys. You can establish a multi-session Windows 10 or 11 Windows experience. Wow, I think I typed that wrong. I should not have typed that second Windows there. My bad. Yeah, I'm a human. Forgive me. But you get the idea. So you can establish a multi-session of Windows 10 or 11. Ignore the second Windows I typed there. Deploy Windows 365 apps and optimize them for multi-user virtual scenarios. Migrate existing RDS and Windows Server desktops and applications to any device. Virtualize both desktop environments and individual applications. And lastly, administer desktops and applications through a unified management platform. Now, there it is again. We're talking again about the unified management platform. And this is the same, or it's very close to the same as that co-management we spoke about earlier. All right, let's take a look at some of the key capabilities of Azure Virtual Desktop, just in case anyone was wondering. Maybe, maybe not. So you've got comprehensive desktop virtualization environment within your Azure subscription. It's one of those classic many cases where Microsoft's giving us something that we may or may not actually ever use, but at the end of the day, it's there to make your life easier. You got the capability to go and publish host pools as needed to support your diverse workloads. You'll find it's got nothing to do with the size of your company. Heck, it might not even have to do anything of the industry you're in. Although that will probably be a more likely reason, the industry you're in. It's completely random. I've seen small companies that's got massive diverse workloads, and I've got huge companies that've got literally just one kind of workload. It's completely random. Now, these host pools are really going to make your life easier. You're going to see I'm going to mention them again in a couple of minutes. So you use your own image for production workloads or test from the Azure gallery. They do give you that option. You'll save on costs with pooled multi-session resources. So you're actually sharing resources of other companies out there. That's basically what it comes down to. Now, before you go and jump on your high horse and think to yourself, wow, that sounds very unsecure. No. Microsoft is one of the biggest entities out there. I'm not promoting Microsoft in any way here, but I'm just stating a fact. So with them being one of the biggest entities out there, you can only imagine how big their budget is. When of such a big budget, you can imagine how big their security might be and how tight their security might be. They've got the latest of the latest and the best of the best. Well, now it just sounds like I'm selling you something. I promise you I'm not trying to sell you something, and I promise you I'm not promoting Microsoft, just stating facts. If you really are concerned about security and you're willing to throw enough money at this problem, you can always go get your own dedicated server. And for those of you that don't know what pooled resources are, or resource pooling, that's when you're sharing resources with other people, like I said in the beginning. So this server on which my virtual machine is running, or whatever is running, there's other resources from other companies running on that same server. And no, there's not such a thing as data leakage that's going to be happening there because of the tight security they've got. Once again, if you're paranoid, get yourself your own server. Of course, that's assuming you can afford to. Other capabilities will be it offers individual ownership with personal or persistent desktops. And then lastly, auto scale to automatically adjust capacity based on daytime or fluctuating demand. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the beginning of this course or not. Quite frankly, I can't remember because we're at module 8 now. But generally, Microsoft only charges you for what you use in the cloud. So if you look at something like 365 and Azure and this is actually not unique to Microsoft, mind you. A lot of the cloud providers, if not most, does this. They only charge you for what you use. So if you don't use something, you don't pay for that something. So if it's something like a virtual machine and you turn it off, well, you're not using it. So then you're not paying for it. Now, Autoscale is to automatically add servers or whatever if you need some, or to take some away if you no longer need them. And if we look at something like a server, keep in mind I'm only mentioning a server as an example. It's not limited to servers. Let's say this server needs more RAM. It'll automatically add more RAM to this server as needed. And if the server no longer needs it because of demand that's gone down, it'll automatically decrease the RAM. And yes, of course, if you go and add more servers automatically, or if you go and add more resources automatically, yes, you are going to be paying for that because you are using more. The concern people normally have at this point in time is they would say, okay, so since you said I'm paying for what I'm using, and since you said this thing is just going to go and auto scale itself up and down, does that mean there's a possibility I can receive a surprise in the mail that says, hey, you owe us the following amount? It's possible, but generally Microsoft does allow you to go and specify a cap, a limit, if you will. So you can go and specify and say, hey, Microsoft, do not exceed this amount in resources, or do not exceed this amount in monetary value. And then they'll increase, decrease, but they'll never exceed the limit you've specified. If they do need to go and increase, and you're about to reach your said limit, and whatever your resource is about to go and crash potentially, they generally will contact you. I mean, it's just a good courtesy and it's just being professional. They'll contact you and say, hey, bud, we see we're about to reach the ceiling of the resources you've specified. Can we exceed that? And if so, by how much? So that's really going to make your life a little bit easier. And at least you can go and budget and you can say, okay, Microsoft, yes, exceed the ceiling, but do not exceed by the following amount. So, yeah. Then, guys, you also have what we call deploy or manage and assign or connect users to your virtual desktop. So that is something you guys are going to see when you guys go and start playing with your lab environment, assuming you've got a lab environment. I highly encourage you guys to go and get yourself an Azure subscription, go get yourself a 365 subscription, and go and play with Intune. Yes, you can pass the exam without doing the practical side of things, but it's really going to help reinforce the knowledge if you guys go and just try some of the stuff out yourself. You can try some of the stuff out yourself. If you're wondering where to get the actual lab steps for this course, you're welcome to ask me in the comment section down below. Alternatively, you can join my Discord server. You'll find that link in the video description down below. It's literally going to be the last link way at the bottom of the video description. Join the Discord server. Chat with me. Ask me, okay, where can you find the lab steps? But in a nutshell, guys, it comes down to you can find it on places like GitHub if you don't want to hit me up. You can go to GitHub, one word, GITHUB. You go to GitHub. There you can find the lab steps, the official Microsoft lab steps for most of the courses. All you need to go and do is you just need to go and type in the course code. You're going to be looking for something that says answer keys. That will be the lab steps. It might ask you to create an account. You don't need to create an account to find what you're looking for. Just trust me, you don't need to create an account for that. You can view it for free from the public side of things, guys. If you have trouble finding it, like I said, ask in the comments down below. Alternatively, ask me in the Discord server. That's going to be a little bit easier, I would say. Now, let's move on to the next topic, folks. Configuring your Azure virtual desktop. So when it comes to configuring your Azure virtual desktop, create and connect a Windows 11 desktop with Azure virtual desktop. Try saying that 5 times fast. So the first thing you're going to be doing in this procedure is to go and create yourself a personal host pool, for those of you not familiar with this. So if you have not done this yet, and if you happen to have access to your lab steps, which you guys will probably have access to now since I've told you how or where to go and get them. So go and create those trials, get your hands on those lab steps. You'll be able to do these lab exercises for completely free. It's not going to cost you a cent. So the Azure subscription is for 30 days. If you go create a trial, it's 30 days. They'll give you $200, whichever comes to an end first. The account suspends itself, and really it will just suspend itself. It is going to ask you for live ID. It is going to ask you for a credit card or a debit card, and it's going to charge you $1 just to make sure your account is real. But that's the only charge. The $1 you get refunded immediately. It's just to make sure you're a human being. As for the 365 trial, that one also is going to ask you for a live ID, and these days I see it's also going to ask you for a credit card. That one, on the other hand, I've seen if the 30 days comes to an end, there's a very good chance it's actually going to start renewing itself and start charging yourself or start charging you. So I would suggest you put a reminder on your phone or something. So around the 28th day or 29-day mark, if you're still using it, to remind yourself to go and cancel your subscription. Otherwise, by the end of the second month, you're going to see surprise on your bank statement and you're not going to be happy with it. So just a suggestion from my side. So use it, don't use it. So as I've said, the first step is to go and create yourself a personal host pool, something you will find in your lab steps. You'll see that in the Azure environment and all that. Second step, guys, is to go and create a session host virtual machine, which is joined to your Azure Active Directory tenant with Windows 11 Enterprise, and add that to the host pool. Then I want you guys to go and create a workspace and an application group that publishes a desktop to the session host virtual machine. Then you're going to move on to assigning your users to the application group. And then lastly, guys, easy peasy, connect to that desktop. Now, yes, like usual, there's bound to be a couple of prerequisites. So let's put that down here at the bottom for you guys. One of the things you have to have in place or make sure is ready and in place and all that is to have an Azure account with an active subscription. A trial will suffice for that. The account must be assigned the owner or the contributor built-in role-based access control role. Now, if you're going to go and create yourself a free trial, guys, you are going to be what we call a global administrator, which is the highest rank admin account you can be. So it's not really going to be necessary for you to go and do that, but it is good for you to go and practice that because you may or may not need to go and do this in your company environment. It's one thing to have the highest privilege in your lab and to be able to go and do this in your lab, but we know very well that when you go back to the company or your company or wherever or to your clients and you're going to go and do this, you may or may not be the main admin. You might not have these privileges, or you might need to go and give someone else these privileges. But obviously the golden rule applies where we say you never give someone more privilege than what they or it needs to achieve a task or a goal. So it's very wise to familiarize yourself with which roles needs to be used here. So pay attention to point 2 there. Point 3, a virtual network in the same Azure region you want to deploy your session hosts in. So the virtual network is to connect your virtual machines and your whatever's to one another. But if this virtual network is not in the same region, it's not going to do you any good. Has to be in the same region. So if you're going to choose North America, make sure you choose North America for everything. If you're going to go and choose Eastern Europe, make sure you choose Eastern Europe for everything. I'm just using those as examples, guys. The last prerequisite I'm going to list here for you guys is a user account in your Azure Active Directory, which you can use for connecting to these desktops. Doesn't help you go and create all this stuff and you don't actually have an account to go and connect to it, right? Alright, folks, and then other than the prerequisites, there's one more last thing I want to mention to you all, and then it's going to be the end of this module, but don't disappear at the end of this module, since it's the last module, it's the last part of the last module, so there's what a few things I want to mention to you before you go on to your exam, a couple of tips, if you will. So anyway, getting on to administering your Azure virtual desktop. So there's various ways you can go about doing that besides using your traditional GUI, which is what I prefer to go and use. You can, yes, you can go and use Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell. And PowerShell should come as no surprise. You can do freaking anything via PowerShell. So you can use Azure CLI extension and Azure PowerShell module for Azure Virtual Desktop to create, update, delete, and interact with your Azure Virtual Desktop service objects instead of using the normal Azure portal. I prefer to use the portal, that's just me, but hey, everybody's different. So with regards to the Azure CLI extension and Azure PowerShell module, this is what the Azure CLI would look like. And this is what the Azure PowerShell thingy would look like. Just in case anyone is wondering, you'll see they're very much the same, but not quite exactly the same. Pay close attention to it. Anyway, and then one last thing, Azure CLI extension doesn't have commands for applications, guys, so something to be aware of. So in that situation, if you find yourself in that pickle of a situation, rather go and use Azure's PowerShell module instead. Alright folks, it has been an absolute pleasure delivering this course to you guys. I hope it has helped some of you guys prepare for your exam. The theory in general is usually never enough to pass the exam. Generally, you need to have some sort of experience. So if you guys are currently working in this field, if you're currently working on Azure 365, more importantly on Microsoft Intune or Configuration Manager, that is massively going to help you prepare for this exam. If you're going to watch just this course of mine, or if you're going to attend just this course of someone else, that is only going to prepare you about 60% of the way to be able to pass this exam. So it's about 60-70%. So yes, if you know absolutely everything I've said in this video and you can memorize this with like a photographic or eidetic memory, then yes, you'll probably be able to pass the exam. But we're human, guys. There is no freaking way we're going to be able to memorize freaking everything in this video course, or if you were to go and attend it of some institution. There's no way. So that is where your practical experience comes into play. So guys, if you have no choice about it, sure, go and write the exam. It is possible to pass the exam with my video course. But I would really, really, really recommend you go and try some of the stuff practically out yourself as well. That actually applies to most of Microsoft's courses. You generally need to go and do the labs. Now, normally, if you attend this course of an institution, you would have access to the labs. Since I'm giving you guys this course for free, I don't have the ability to give you the labs. But I can give you guys a couple of tips regarding getting your hands on your own labs. So as I've said earlier, go to GitHub. I'll drop the link to GitHub in the video description as well for you guys. I think why not? Alternatively, just go and hit me up on Discord or drop a comment down below. Go to GitHub, run a search for MD-102. There you will find the lab steps. You'll find a lot of things that are actually regarding the labs and all kinds of other resources. It's not just the lab steps. It's normally called lab answer keys. They might call it something else. You'll find us approximately 8 of them. And that is the official actual steps you would have gotten in the labs if you would have done the labs in an actual official course with an institution. It's the exact same steps. So get your hands on that. You can download them in a PDF form. I just normally copy paste them into a Word document. I save it as a PDF and then I've got available offline. Get yourself a couple of trials and then you just go and do exactly what those lab steps says. You would have created your own labs then technically, completely for free. It's completely legit. It's not illegal. It's completely legit. It's completely legal to go and do that. It's just most people don't want to go through the hassle of doing that. So your training institution or your training provider would normally do it for you. But since you guys need to do this for free, I'm assuming a lot of you guys don't have funds to go and do this course. That's a nice alternative to save you guys some money. I hope it's helping you guys. All right, guys. Just a special shout out to the sponsors of this channel. Thank you very much for sponsoring this course and the channel. Thank you to the Patreon guys. Thank you to the PayPal guys. All of you that's been clicking on the thanks button below the video. Those of you buying me milkshakes and coffee. So quickly on the screen, here's a couple of the Patreon sponsors. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate all of you. Here's a couple of the PayPal sponsors. Thank you to all of you guys as well. And then lastly, guys, regarding the Discord server, you can find that link in the video description down below. You don't have to join it, but if you want to, it's a free server. It's an IT community where I'm in. There's lots of other people like me in that community. Other people studying this course as well as other courses. And if you happen to know the answer to a question that someone else is asking, feel free to go and answer it. At the end of the day, the more friends you have in IT and all of that, the better, I would say. Right, guys, see you on one of the other courses. Keep an eye out on the channel. There's going to be more courses on the channel going forward. Bye, guys.